Hello, everybody. I'm Dorian Vallejo. I'm glad you can make it. It's a nice crowd tonight. So I think tonight will be kind of exciting. I do a lot of different things, and if any of you were here last time, then you're probably familiar with portraits that I do. And so this is a more finished version of a portrait. But I'm going to run through a couple of different things, and primarily tonight will be drawing. And when we get to the question and answer part of it, if I go through, if you have any questions while I'm speaking, just go ahead and interrupt me, put your hand up or interrupt me, and I'll go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. What else? I think that should cover it. So there's a lot of stuff that I do. All of it is realistic, and it's an optimistic, beautiful representation of humanity. So that's very important. Oh, what lovely music! I mean, it's like perfect on cue. I just wish that would be recorded. My goodness. So okay, so I'm going to give you a little overview of what I plan tonight. So we'll start with some portraits. Oh, fiddly. Let's see now. That's just great. Oh, no, I see. Okay, so we'll start with some portraits, and move this out of the way here. And when I was very young, I did science fiction and fantasy book covers. And so when I say young, in my early 20s. And this is way before Photoshop and digital and obviously AI. We were all much younger then. So at the same time, I was working from life and putting together some drawings. If some of you got the book that I gave last time, you might recognize this is one of those drawings. That book represents an earlier part of my drawing, and I've recently had another book published, and I brought that again tonight. Should anybody feel generous enough or be interested? So okay, these kinds of drawings I did from life, and the idea with them was experimentation. So it was always like trying something new, working with different media. And then at the same time of working in that different media, I was painting from life as well. So I would hire a model and do these paintings with the model. Some of you have actually come to the studio that Kelly and I started up and worked with us, so you're familiar with that. Also, while doing that, I was doing fine art as well to show in galleries and sell directly to collectors. And it's again realism, but it also encompasses sort of like an imaginary metaphor for things that I think but most of us kind of experience in life. And so this is one of those things, this is one of those paintings, and I'll share some of those with you tonight. Also drawings, pen and ink. Inside that first book that I gave you, I would do a drawing inside the first 2 pages to make it a collector's edition. And I will share a couple of those drawings. This is another one of those drawings. Then tonight, what I thought I'd really do is share how I get to doing that. And this is the love of my life, and I do a lot of drawings of her. I have sketch pads, hundreds and probably thousands of drawings of hers. And so she's not posing, she's really just sitting around working at her computer. Sometimes she's sleeping. And, then Sarah, who's posing next week, I'm friends with her, and I've gone to her place and drawn her too. So these are a smaller sketchbook. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to share tonight are an overview, but also sketches. And a lot of times I don't share my sketches because they're private and they're not for sale. But I thought it might be interesting to see the process of how I go about doing different things and the variety of things. And I could overwhelm you tonight, and I overwhelmed myself. I had like 400, just 400 scans, or actually photos of drawings in, prepared for tonight. I was like, that's too much. So I've edited it down, but it's still too much. But anyhow, so we go out, Kelly and I, and she works at a community farm. Not works, but she has a plot there, and I do drawings of nature as well, because it's beautiful. It's that this is another type of thing that's also outdoors. It's on New Year's, Kelly and I have a tradition where every New Year's Day, we go out and we draw God's country, Pennsylvania, of course. And we make a sketch together. So we'll drive somewhere, we'll sit in the car for several hours or less, but it's tradition that we do every year. So this was this year's drawing. And it's not like we're looking for any particular spot in general. We just come across, pull in and say, make a drawing, let's spend time together. And we're spending time together every day and drawing and painting anyhow, but this is a way to mark the year. And we're both artists and we both love doing this. And so we make a point of doing something together. And if she were here, then I could bring up her drawing as well, but she's not. So in any case, we also go landscape painting as well. There's the famous Vasari paints that's moved into the area, and this was done with their paints. Sometimes I take the model that's indoors and bring them outdoors, and I was testing different things. Again, you'll see a lot of double spreads from my sketchbook, because the sketchbook is where I do a lot of experimentation. I'm also influenced by comics from my childhood, so I'll change the styles, I'll do different things. On the left you can see, like, is it your left? It is your left, okay. You can see like that style is somewhat different than the one on the right, and that's the one on the right, it's a little more comic booky, but that kind of thing that Kelly does, that's, to my eye, the thing that we're seeing every day, that's kind of what life is offering us as poetry and the American experience, probably the global experience, but we're here in America, and this is what we see in our neighborhood, and what I find, but I think a lot of people do if we're paying attention, which is our job as artists, is to see the beauty that nature is offering us, that God is offering us. Portraits, all of that stuff that I'm giving you this little overview is all going on at once, So some days I'll be doing sketches, and I'll also have somebody, this was done from life, somebody like posed for me, it's done in a couple of hours. That's another one that's done from life of someone local here. If we're lucky and I get through my slides, or you've had enough, I thought I might share, some process. I've recorded some paintings getting done and some drawings getting done. So, I thought I might share something, in the process of how it gets done, because it's one thing to see finished things, but it's maybe kind of fun to see it get done. Pencil drawings, it's interesting to me that very often, I'm sure this happens with you as well, people call or you get an inquiry and they say, well, how much is a portrait? And I say, well, I do so many different things. There's a difference between, a painting, a pencil drawing that's much more finished of two people, that's done from a photograph. And so, I thought I'd share some of that as well. So let's start at the beginning. That's kind of the overview of what we'll be doing tonight. this is a book cover, and you'll see in there the early part of this, before I met Kelly, this young lady who's kneeling, that was actually my girlfriend then, when we met when we were teenagers, and so that was that. And again, this is before Photoshop. So I would make models for all of this stuff. I built a spaceship, you know, everything. I made the little alien, you know, built it out of clay. Like, there was nothing that the computer could do to help, and I wanted a form of realism that could sell the illusion that I was trying to create. So these kinds of things were what I did in my early 20s. And I was very, very serious about it, just as serious as I am now at trying to produce something really beautiful. It became a little disheartening to me when I found out that some of the books were less than virtuous. Maybe that's a way of putting it. Again, like an early painting here, if some of you might be familiar with my father's work, he's also an artist, and that early kind of scantily clad female with Conan was in my early teens really what I thought of as art. And when I went to school and I met this young lady here, some of these people in the background were my friends. This guy was one of my professors, and they introduced me to Rembrandt and Sargent and the old masters and working from life. And so my life, my art career and my interests and kind of broadened, and you know, it just became much more. I had like higher expectations than what book covers were offering. This is my grandfather, and so I was doing aliens, and like I say early on, I loved comic books and I loved science fiction. I mean, we're all old enough to remember the first Star Wars movies, and you know, aliens and that kind of thing, and that was so exciting for me and really what I wanted to do. Terminator, that kind of thing. You know, and so all of these explosions, and you kind of, at the same time, computers were starting to come in, and then, you know, this was Leanna, that girl that I told you about, and then this happened. So while I was, you know, of course you become like obsessed with your own child, every little fingernail, every hand, every position, and the science fiction stuff, the book covers started to recede in the past. I would do them, I was just as excited, but reality was so beautiful to me that it was just pulling me away from it. And I would continue to do these drawings, and then, you know, I could just do one drawing and then another one almost the same, because like there was this feeling of, the best way that I can express it is, you're doing something that you love, of people and of something that you love, and it was the closest thing, and still is, to the gratitude that one might have for God to be able to give you talent and gifts and be able to marry them together and caress the form and love the person quietly in a poetic expression, and at the same time be getting better and a deeper understanding. And so that so superseded gradually more and more my initial love for like commercialism and commercial projects, that and it started to move towards computers anyhow. So I just thought, okay, we're going to have to do something different. And here he is, a little bit older, and he looks so much like his mother. And so, it was very natural for me to move into portraits. And so I started doing drawings and paintings of people. And, again, that sentiment that's a part of me to see people in a beautiful light, to see America in an optimistic, aspirational light. This was the headmaster who started this school in a room in Dallas, not much bigger than this, with a couple of people, and then grew it into one of the most prestigious private schools in the world, really. So this was a portrait that's very large. It's life-size. It's probably like 10 feet. And it is him in his office, and he had his office, and there's a window in front of him, and the reflection that's in the window is all of the children that are part of the school, but come and go as he's brought this into being. So even with portraits that you would ordinarily think of as straightforward, I was working towards making them something different, something interesting, something personal, like a boy and his dog. This is, while doing those portraits, I was also, continuing to do portraits from life as well. I think I have a video of this one in process that I brought today. We'll see if we get to it. This is someone you all know. So she's also, a terrific artist in herself and in her own right, and tattoo artist. So this kind of thing of working and marrying the two things that I really like, painting directly from life and seeing people in this optimistic light, and then also being able to make money with it. Painting from life, is just one of the many things that I do. Some important people too, some, and then some casual. And I organize this in such a way, somewhat, so that you can see like the more formal and then the more casual. But really what's happening is that it's all going on at once. There's sketchbook stuff, and there's painting stuff, and there's formal stuff, and there's portraits, and there's fine art, and there's just a lot of things that are always going on. It could be painting like that's painted from life, and then something that Kelly's doing that just is the immediate kind of impression that I'm trying with paint. The same thing I do with the drawings is, how loose can I go? How impressionistic can I go? How tight can I go? And then, like I said before, there's a difference when people ask the open-ended question, how much does a portrait cost? Well, of course, it's different if it's a full figure, and this is also like pretty close to life size, or a pencil sketch from life, which is probably 20 minutes a person, So, the fun thing about these pencil sketches from life is the immediacy of them, and how you capture the human being, and that's from a photograph. And there's a distinct difference, there's no way this little one could hold that pose, or this beautiful girl. It's, and I'm striving for something, he can hold the pose. And there's something magical and wonderful about that teen, with a sort of look in his eyes, and then the little girl who's just old enough to hold still, and that kind of sentience that's present in her in her eyes as well. And so, another nice thing about the sketches is that you just do them of people at any age. And Charlie has done the same thing, and it's just a wonderful thing, to capture people. I mean, just look at that profile. My God, it's wonderful. I mean, he would have been like, I don't know what, like a gladiator or something, and then you move from that to like children, and then something from photographs, some charcoal. I'll also do, when people can't pose from life, I can compose things from photographs as well, from life here. My focus a lot is from life. I really try and work from life, but it's just not always possible. This was from life. So was this. So was this. And obviously that was from a photograph. And so we moved to some fine art. And like I say, this is all going on at the same time. And the thing with the fine art is that I love painting people, but sometimes I'm trying to imbue in an image something metaphorical about the experience of life, something poetic that is more than just the representation of what can be seen in an image. And so some of these were like a floating series, and then some of them, like I said before, I have a reference to ideas. This one to some connection to Greek mythology. And then, at the same time, I might have the drawing in here. It's a little sketch, and of what I see every morning, that I think, goodness, that's just lovely. Like that in itself is worthy of making an image. The person that you love, that you see moving in the world, and the way the light comes in, and the way, as you could say, nature or God is organizing all these things, and it's our job as artists to sort of record it. And not just record it like a journalist, but like an artist. Not like a camera, not like a machine, not like AI, but like an artist. And so here she is walking through a neighbor's garden. Here she is sewing. It's one of those things that I love about what Kelly does is that she does so many things that are traditionally feminine that traditionally I just love to see. And so I just feel like compelled to paint it. And then from reality to metaphor. So this was somewhat inspired by the idea of a transition through time and different moments, all of which can happen in a few seconds, from thoughtful to stretching to contemplative to concerned, and trying to impose those. Usually what we're familiar with is a single image, and I was trying to capture those different ideas in an image, and try to capture the movement that we experience in life, but in an image. So, and then of course, drawings as well. So, like a lot of my drawings are experimental, or like I'll move from, like mixed media to pen and ink to, like I said before, something that might be closer to a little bit of comic booky, but it's also part of our modern experience. There's a lot of young ladies that are like comic book characters. They dress they dress up like comic book. This is really the way this is really that person in her space. This is not made up. And a good portion of this drawing, well, doesn't matter, but it was done there on location. So there's my lovely Kelly, and there she is again, looking at art books. And how could I not capture that? It's so spectacular. I'm like, I'm living with art and seeing it take place right before my eyes. And so, like, you just have to paint it or draw it, make a drawing of it. Here she was in our front yard. And I think one of the things that I'm trying to share with you is the variety of approaches, but what's consistent throughout the whole thing is always an optimistic, beautiful representation of life, and you know, our experience here. So there's that same girl in her space, and Kelly's a big reader. There she was, and it's, you know, like you can move from the craziness of everything to doing a painting that also has a bit of that craziness, but in color, and then back to a kind of comic book version of that type of craziness. So, and then outside, the kind of infinitely complex thing that, you know, going from grass to leaves, but just in black and white, pen and ink, and then, you know, to something like a little more peaceful and flowing. So these, I thought I would share some of the collector's editions I did. These are, again, some original drawings that were put into a book that I brought here tonight, and I think there's something like over 400 pages in the book. So I'm sharing some of those. And again, these drawings are meant to display, a lot of them are of Kelly, but some of them are of other people as well. That poetic vision that's put before all of us every day. It's not just mundane, it's poetry that is presented to us, and it's our job as artists to say, you know, wow, look at that. Look at the way the sunlight is coming in and crawling right up you know, striking the table and then up the books and catching the side of her while she's just eating and looking at art books. Like, magic is happening before us all the time, whether it's indoors or she's out at the farm, you know, or sipping a cup of coffee in the morning, going through a pocketbook, you know, picking flowers. You know, that little sketch that I showed you, that's inspired something a little more finished, but not totally finished. It's a collector's edition. But it's another type of drawing. You know, just looking at a phone. This is a different person that's, you know, just, again, observing the beauty that's presented to us every day. I think Kelly's, yeah, she's got an iron there. I think she's making clothes, cooking, painting. And I just think this is just magic stuff. I don't think I'm that lucky. I think we are all seeing this. And part of what I'm doing with my artwork is I've deliberately moved away from the commercialism and what was meant to sell a really bad story, to be honest. Like, some of them were so offensive. Some of the stories were so terrible that I knew once I had, I didn't know before I had done the painting. I found out after the fact when somebody came in and said, "Hey, did you ever read that book?" And I said, "No, I was just given a synopsis and told to do the cover." "Well, the book is about this and this and this," and it was so against my moral values that I could not justify the gifts. We're in a church, so I might as well say it that way, because I felt that serious about it. The gifts that God had given me to be prostituted, to be honest, in service of evil. The stories were just flat evil. And so I knew I had to do something else. And so part of that was moving away. And part of these drawings, part of this project was a conversation that I had. Well, it wasn't a conversation. It was more of a debate that I had with a friend where he said it was impossible to do work for yourself and make money. And I said, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to live that way because I will not serve the devil. Excuse me. This is observing, and every single one of these drawings has sold and put food on our plate and put a roof over our head, and the books have sold. And this is Kelly out here at the Quadrant, if many of you are familiar with that place. These kinds of drawings that show people outside or inside or moving through, like our woods. This is Jacobsburg Park, where the person's almost secondary, but still there in the complexity of life. Picking some more flowers. That's grown for me in importance so much more. It's grown to feel so much more sincere and real and honest than. And I loved the commercialism, the projects that I was working. I loved Star Wars. It was a part of my life. I loved science fiction. I still love science fiction and fantasy. But working in the field, once you sort of got to see the way the sauce was made, it's not what I wanted to. The art directors, the editors, the business, that was nothing that I wanted to have a part of anymore. And every single one of these drawings that I've ever done, it's been something that I've wanted to do. I've never worked on a project that I didn't want to do. And again, like maybe part of the theme of tonight is the sincerity, not just doing something for money, but doing something, trusting in God and your talent, the talents that were given, your vision, your poetry, and making that thing and moving forward, believing that it will sustain you. And I can tell you, it's just wonderful. So this is kind of all that was going to get to this kind of thing, and which is probably the majority of what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. But maybe I'll take a pause for a second, and unless you guys have any questions at all.
For example, some of those pictures you had done, there was one where you had a room, you could see the side of it, and then you could see the image on the inside.
Yes.
The separations. How long does it take to create something like that? Your details for the stuff that's on the dresser, and then the individual, and it was a wonderful composition. I thought that was popped right out.
Well, that's probably apropos for what I'm just getting started to say. It's like a lot of these drawings that I'm sharing with you now, they represent things that I see, and sometimes they're made up, sometimes they're really quick, so this is done from life of Kelly in the garden, just that was not Kelly, or some landscapes. And so if you ask a question to say like, how long does it take? The thing is, let me just answer that correctly, and I'll press play here. So some things, if you're bored with my answer, you can watch the screen, and some other images will go, and then I'll talk about that because it'll relate to like the images that are on screen as well. I do a lot of these types of drawings in my sketchbook while there are paintings going on, and sometimes I'm working on a painting, and Kelly's doing something, or we're talking. Here she just woke up in the morning, and we were talking. The sun comes in, I go, oh my God, that's beautiful. And so would that be incorporated in how long it takes? There are a lot of ideas that take place in my sketchbook that later become drawings, that later become paintings. And then maybe, while I'm painting, it's never, ever actually like a complete project that goes from point A to point B and it's done. I'll be working on something, I'll see her in the morning, and I generally stay up later and go to sleep earlier. I have a lot of energy, in case you didn't tell, in case you can't tell. And I have this lovely person that I'm just wild about, that every time she moves, I think, there's another work. I have to draw that. I have to work. So I can't ever really work on a painting from start to finish without being distracted by this, this beautiful creature that God has put before me, including the world. Like I step outside and there's sketches in my sketchbook where I'll see a mother and a child walking, and I think, oh, that's lovely. I'm driving down the street. Oh my goodness, that's lovely. So I pull over. I can't get to the supermarket without seeing some. I have sketchbooks in the car, I've gone with Kelly when she's been on a job for the museum, and I've drawn her while she's been there, or when we go out to eat, I'll bring my sketchbook out to eat. And so we've been at the beach and I've drawn her. It's always taking place, either drawings or paintings. And so it's hard to put a number on how long it takes. When I was doing the science fiction fantasy paintings, that had to be done on a particular date. So I could measure in some way, this painting has to take 7 days to completion, but it would probably take me 2 or 3 weeks to get all the reference together, build the models, do the sketches, because there were sketches. I'm not sharing those sketches here because it's already overkill. I have a lot to share with you tonight, but I have, literally boxes and boxes and boxes of sketchbooks that were devoted to making sketches for those covers, things that inspired me. And of course, in those sketchbooks, it's interrupted with what was then my wife and child. So I'd have to work on a job that was supposed to be done on Monday, and I would see these beautiful people and think, oh, the heck with that, man. I'm drawing this. Look at them. They're cuddled up on the couch. How can I do this stupid alien when these beautiful people are and so the timing on something, it gets done when it gets done. I work on it. I'm working on paintings now that are massively complex, way more complex than anything that I've done here. They're the most complicated projects I've done, and I can tell you that I started the sketches for those maybe 10 years ago, and I just didn't even know how to do it because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I drew it out of my head, but I had no conception of how to pull it together, and it took me 10 years or longer to get to the point where I thought, I think I know how to approach this, and I'm working on some of those paintings now, and
what makes them so complex? They're portraits?
Well, they're not just straight portraits. and some of them are related to that maze type of thing that I showed you in the beginning, the figure that was composed of like the maze and the labyrinth. And that in itself was kind of complicated to figure out how to do that. And it's sort of like an expansion of that. And I've thought a lot about it and written notes about it. And then in doing the painting, that's actually what's become like immensely complicated, like how to resolve it in a believable way. So, that's what makes it kind of complicated. I don't know. Does that sort of answer the question, kind of?
The other thing too I'm curious about is when you see your fantasy paintings, you've shown work that you were in progress, like when you did a portrait here, you're using oil paint and how thick it is and how you thin it down some. But when you see a fantasy painting like those, the gladiators and
Yes,
stuff like
yes.
that, is that still oil paint, like Vasari paint, or is it a different product? Are you using acrylics or?
No. That's also oil paint as well.
But
So
you thin it down tremendously, or?
no, I mean, like, fortunately, you've seen me paint. Like we've painted together, and so you have a pretty good idea of like the finish that can take place on my paintings, where it can be really smooth or it can be like a little chunkier in paint. And so when I was making paintings for reproduction on book covers, it was more important that there'd be less impasto and that it'd be a lot smoother. So I just made it smoother, but it's the same paint. I wasn't using Vasari at the time. I think I was using Winsor and Newton, which the owner would cast serious dispersions on. So I was actually, funny little story. He's got a love. I don't know if you haven't been there, it's worth going to. You can test out the paint, and it's really extraordinary paint. It's wonderful. Anyhow, so I asked if I could bring a model and paint there, and so Kelly and I were painting like a model. They have this nice window, and I might start up our thing again, and maybe we'll do it there. I don't know. We'll see. In any case, he came over, and I wasn't using his paint. So I'm in his paint store, and I'm not using his paint. And he looks at the back of my easel where all my paints are. He says, "What is this garbage? What are you doing in my place? How dare you come in my place and paint with this garbage?" I mean, I did the landscape, with your paints, but like, those paints are expensive. But in all truthfulness, you can use less of his paint than you can of the Winsor Newton or the Gamblin or whatever. So it kind of evens out. Anyhow, I just thought that was kind of a funny story, and like referencing like paint and what paints to use, and they're very pigmented. It's like the difference between Gamblin and his paint is like the difference between driving a little compact ordinary car and driving a luxury mobile, with like it's sort of difficult to control it. You have to get used to it. If you're used to driving your little compact rental car, and then you're suddenly in like a Formula One where you step on the gas and it shoots forward, and you step on the brake and it stops. That's like the difference between like ordinary paint and his paint.
We toured Vasari, and he gave us the whole thing, put in the paint in the tubes. I was surprised to find he only makes one color a day.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And it'd be a different batch the next day, etc.
Yeah.
He'll never do multiple colors at the same time.
Yeah. Any other questions, or should I continue forth?
Does Kelly ever mind that you're painting her while she's sleeping or doing something?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. And in fact, like everybody there she is on the left. Those are like cartoony people when she was shopping. But no, and since I've been in high school, it's been very clear to me that I needed to be with someone that would be an artist and that would understand my passion and my desire to draw them and draw the world, and there would be no obstacles. And we can all be distracted by our hormones and by the beauty we see before us. But I knew very early on, even before I was serious about being an artist, I played tennis, and then it had to be an athlete. Just because, like, being pulled away from what you love to do would for me, I couldn't give them what they wanted. It would be unfair on my behalf. So Kelly doesn't mind at all. She's used to it. I'm honest.
Stopping somewhere and saying, "Oh, I got a quick sketch this."
She doesn't stop. She just moves and like there she's moved right here. She's in the farm. She's picking things, and I'm drawing that's a drawing that I did from memory of someone else, posing for me. She's if she's sleeping, then she's staying still. I can do something a little bit more, but she really doesn't mind at all. And I share every single drawing that I do of her, and painting, So, all right, maybe I'll go back to our, I'll put this on pause for a moment, and I'll come back to, where were we here? Acrobat. Okay. So like I say, this kind of drawing here, I think I was in the car. I might have gone to the gym, look out the window and thought, goodness gracious, look at that. That's just so pretty. These type of drawings are my drawings that are in my sketchbook that's in the car. That's okay. So, like I'm drawing nature. This is another drawing that's like from my imagination, out of my head. So I'm trying to blend the two things together. So some flowers that Kelly brought home from the garden, from memory with notes like on the side. Again, like a tree that's just outside the gym, and it's flowering. Some thoughts and some poetry. So drawings that are from imagination. I'll generally have this type of thing where I'm in the car and I have ideas, and I think, just get that down quickly, and then they're incomplete. That's that drawing that idea that I was telling you of a mother who was kind of walking, and it was interesting to me, the difference in the body language of the two, where I did it from memory and very quick in the car, and it was this mother who was kind of oppressed by and looking down by life, by the responsibilities of life, and maybe she was tired, God knows what was going on, but and then the kind of wild enthusiasm of this little child of hers just running by her like a little maniac. And it's not the greatest drawing in the world, it's just a note. And these sketchbooks are not meant to have the greatest drawings. They're meant to be like scribbles and ideas. Like in the fall, the little bit of gold left on the tree and all dispensed on the ground. Like, God, how lovely what we're seeing. How lovely what we're experiencing. Some red, like the blood, and then, winter and the sparseness of it. Maybe a house with some straggly little things. And this kind of thing I might do when, we go shopping and I see something and Kelly goes into the store to get something. I'm like, I'm just going to draw. I can't go in. I see that. I'm just going to draw it really quickly. So she'll go shopping and I'll just do something. Maybe she went in to get a cup of coffee. It's very quick. These are, very quick drawings, and maybe some little poetry. There's a drawing from memory of her. Again, one of those things where the kind of complexity of life kind of overwhelms and it becomes like all like craziness. But, she was walking past this bunch of flowers and I thought, oh, gotta remember that. Another drawing like on the way to the gym. So like, I think in some way my day gets so interrupted. I plan to go to the gym. I stop, I park somewhere and I think, goodness, look at those little houses and those giant trees. What an amazing neighborhood we live in. And you just got to make note of it. The distribution of lights and darks and, here's, the garden again. Quick sketches, very quick. This is Kelly again, and she's on a job somewhere, doing. I don't remember if this was before or after. Obviously, she's on her phone, but doing some kind of work, and so I'm just recording, But again, not recording, seeing something beautiful. We went to the Barnes and Noble, and I walked by, and there were these two kids. So this is drawing from memory. Two children, and with books all around them. And I thought, that's wonderful. In today's day and age, when all these young kids are on their phones, look at these two. And they were talking like, oh, this book is really good because blah, 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 blah. This happens. And oh, well, let me show you about this book. And oh my God, it was so touching that I just drew it from memory. And it's incomplete because, other things are coming up. Maybe an hour later, we're back at the hotel and she's reading something. And so there it says on the bottom, Bozeman reading about the homesteading, like how that was taking place, and that's what built up Bozeman at that time. So these are quick little drawings. So I have a sketchbook that stays in the car. I have sketchbooks that travel with me, like when we go different places. This was an earlier type of sketchbook that was in the car. I would drive by and see people and think, what a character. Oh my goodness, look at this person. Like, just draw them. Or the pose of somebody, what they do with their legs. Just driving in the car with Kelly in that kind of sequential movement of our experience, looking out, looking at her, seeing what she's doing, seeing the traffic that is kind of like a daily, well, maybe like a journalistic comic strip. Different ideas that are like kind of comic strippy. On the upper left is I was visiting with a friend and she was playing with her cat, and I thought, oh, you got to remember that. And this person just walking, try to remember that. Try to remember it. How do dogs actually move? And they're not great drawings. These are more of that type of thing. Just driving by and I see two kids and a bicycle, and how quickly can you see things and think, God, that's just so beautiful, and just record it. Try and hold on to that flash and then draw it, that sense of beauty that was presented. Kelly working at the computer at some place. We were at a party and people were talking. And in this particular sketchbook, there was no attempt to make the line beautiful, to do anything but maybe like just capture movement, a figure in movement, moving through time, or just overlapping, or ideas. Nothing about trying to make in this sketchbook. It was not about the line weight. It was just taking a pen, a thin pen, and just drawing, and then how can I make these kinds of drawings, is moving towards trying to discover yet another type of style. Because you get so familiar drawing in one way, what it would be like to make it a little more simple, make it more like a comic book, make it less specific and more general, and different incomplete ideas for maybe collector's editions or final drawings. Taking those drawings that had started in sketchbooks and then trying to push it a little further. This is one of those drawings that I told you about where Kelly was like at the side of the pool and just checking, super fast drawing, like very, very quickly. Here she's getting set. She was going off, I think we were in Florida, and she was going off to work. And so I don't know what she was doing, waiting for a coffee or something, or there we were at the beach. Oh, that's that drawing I told you about. She was at work, just moving around rapidly, and I was like, well, I'm just sitting here. I'm never just sitting. I'm always doing something. This is when we were at that table, waiting for our breakfast, and she's just talking to me. She's not really posing. She's just talking, and we're waiting for breakfast. Different drawings of a model outdoors. Yes.
Reference when you just showed those bunch, you had a little bit of tan color in it.
This?
Those little squares that I purchased too that you use.
It is.
What's that right brand on that? Art something it's called?
Graph.
Okay. But, it's like, I have 7 different colors.
Yes.
I do basically, I play with them like that.
Yeah.
And it's marvelous what it can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I love those. So some of these drawings, again, incomplete. Some of them much more complete. Taking the drawings that started out as really sketchy drawings, and then having a sketchbook where I would develop them more. And like hiring a model and trying out different things and just developing them a lot more. And these drawings are the kind of drawings that would be taken further than for collector's editions. Give me good ideas, So I'm not just like doing a job. I'm always like searching for like, oh, that might be nice. That might be nice. Look at this girl with her cat, giant cat. This actually did become a collector. Just a little sketch eventually did become a collector's edition drawing. So that girl with her big cat, Sarah in her place, and the fun thing again is like to experiment with these, and these it's just a sketchbook. In some ways, I wanted to do these drawings in the sketchbook to experiment because I didn't want to be hemmed in by having to make a finished drawing. I was like, okay, I'll do these quick little drawings here, and see what comes of it. Maybe something will come of it. Maybe it gets maybe she'll move. Here we're talking, and I get to experiment with like graphic design. Here's a very good example of restless, Kelly. Like I started drawing, she moves. I start another one, she moves. I start another one. Maybe she stays a little bit longer. Different media, different colors. There's that sketch I was talking about for the painting. There's a sketch that's like what I was talking to you about, Eric, where I had done this type of thing and then figured, like, how am I going to make this into a painting? Like, how? I just don't even know how to do it. Now, I have other drawings that are from this time period. I figured that one out and I made a painting of it. But like the other ones were more complex and I just didn't even know how to do it. And now I'm working on it. And that's really wonderful. You know, these drawings are fun because it's fun to work, you know, while you're like, Kelly will wake up and be like, oh, there you are drawing. I had this dream. You know, I had this dream. I was thinking about this. And what do you want to do today? And I'm like, oh, let's, you know, we're just talking and I'm drawing. And so it's just like a really wonderful experience. Here she's at the beach and, you know, we're talking there and she's half tired. I think her only criticism, Eric, is she says, you know, you do so many drawings of me sleeping. In the future, people are going to think, this lazy girl did nothing but sleep. And so I have this other sketchbook. That's a sketchbook that's in the bedroom that I do sleeping drawings. Then I have this other sketchbook where she's about the house and, you know, she's doing different things. But, you know.
Her model? Does she draw you as often? Well, probably not as often as you do.
She's not as into drawing me. She will draw me, but I'm kind of obsessed, you know, and I'm striving to, bless you. I'm striving to do something that I wasn't really taught, you know, and in some way, Kelly's much more pragmatic. You know, she's like, I got to make some money. Like, how's that going to happen? And I'm just enamored with the poetry that I'm being presented with, and like the money comes secondary, and it's fine. You know, like we can put a roof on over our head and eat, but you know, we're in the car, and I'm thinking, look at this crazy girl. Like, look at her with 2 glasses and these pink, like, crazy pants. And I just have to draw it, you know? So, anyhow, lots and lots and lots of drawings. You know, some things outside, you know, share that with you. Some paintings outdoors. There's our bridge. I also do like little cartoons that I share. And I never really share these, like I never post them online, but I thought I'd share them here because it's kind of fun because, you know, another part of the theme of tonight might be, you know, like how wild I am about, you know, how lucky I am to have a person that I'm just crazy about. And so for Valentine's Day, I did a little book and, you know, I published it. And it's just a one-off, you know, of things that I love reflecting on our life together. So, you know, here we are like cooking together and then we eat together and say thanks before we start eating. And then, you know, clean up afterwards, and she's just delighted that I'm cleaning the dishes. So she's giving me a hug. And so this particular book has like small little strips of that thing, or like little impromptu dates, like, you feel like going to Barnes & Noble? Yeah, sure, let's go. So, you know, or, you know, taking little breaks. She's got her cup of coffee and I can hear her in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, good time for a little love. Or, you know, that thing that happens every day, like the dishes, you know, are being cleaned, or she's cooking. In this particular case, you know, she's cooking a meal and some boxes, place is a little messy, you know, the cabinet's open there with, and this style is deliberately more comic booky, you know, it's deliberately so. Discussing the lofty conceits of this inconstant life. So a little line from Shakespeare, you know, but obviously she's reading some Shakespeare to me, and then I'm talking about what I think it meant, and that's kind of like how our dates go. It's like kind of unconventional, but wildly fun to sit down and go over that. And dancing like fools, looking at art books together, and morning walks to get her coffee. And I think maybe I'll leave it there. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
There's one other thing you had mentioned earlier, that you may show us one little video of you doing a painting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for remembering. Okay, let me come here, and I have. I'll show you a couple of things. Would you? I have a couple of different things here. So I'll show this, and then let's just open it up like this. And it gets started. Maybe make it full screen like that. Let's see. This is a painting that I did when I was in school, and I didn't finish it, and it's not very good. So I just thought, well, let me just paint right over it. So you can see that, like, I'll just paint right over it. So the particular thing about this kind of painting is that the painting is very much like the drawing. I'll start loosely, like what you saw, just smudging some paint down. There was a field of light, and because what I was looking at, what was in front of me, was light, and then I'll gradually go from that general to the specific. So maybe I'll play a couple of them, and then I'll talk it through.
What's sad about that is 200 years from now, somebody will find that painting and say, well, there's another one underneath it, and scrape the top off.
Yeah, right. Scrape that one off. That's very funny. Let's see. Let's try another oil painting. Okay, so that's that painting that I was telling you about, and that's the way that gets started. And this was done on location. It's at Emily's studio, if you know Emily, and there was sun coming in, and that's why the light changes. It's not ideal situation, but that's also part of the fun of it. Just to paint in all sorts of different circumstances. And make it work. Since I mentioned Emily, I think I have one of her. Let's pull this out of the way. And so here I was just painting over a piece of toned canvas. So you can see it starts out very much like the way those gestures at the farm start out, just a quick little scribble, and then working, and you can see even parts that are not finished yet. Then I'll focus in on an area and kind of resolve it a little bit more, and then work towards the other details. Now that's done from life, but when I'm working from a photograph, it's very much the same. And in that kind of way, I can compose it. And Charlie, you've seen me do a lot of these type of paintings. So, I can go from something very general to like the highlight on the ring. And you can see it being done. It's not hard. You're like, oh, okay, that's where the ring would go. And that comes after the fact. So I put together, let's see. Okay, let's talk through some of this a little bit. This is a quick, very, very quick, like maybe a minute or 2 minutes, this drawing. And so I'm going to start by showing you what the drawing is, and then I'm going to show you kind of like how I lay it out. And this is very much the way a drawing takes place, or the way a painting takes place. And once I lay out the composition, which is the basic shapes, then I can go in and start working on the details. And like I say, this thing is probably done in a minute and a half or 2 minutes. So here's another type of that. And I've put together a couple of these things where I would show you at the beginning where I'm going, because you can't see the model. You see the final drawing, but here you can see how I'm basically trying to hit the extremities of the pose, and how that's very, very lightly. That's my basic lay-in, and then I kind of know, okay, that's basic. That's where the head's going to go. That's where the arms are going to go. Those are the shapes that that's the poetry that I see in front of me, and now I'm going to work on, as much as I can in 2 minutes, whatever I can get done in 2 minutes. And there's a lot of effort that goes into to doing these quickly like that. Is that it? That's it. So let's see, let's close that. And I think I brought something a little longer, like maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So let's see where this goes. So that's, something a little more finished, and still not quite a painting, but a small drawing. It's probably like the size of computer paper. And again, you can see that same basic process where I've divided the page almost in half. So she's going to take the right side of the page, and there's all these kind of arabesques and curves that take place with her, and that are in opposition to the straight lines of the couch. And then her, here's another one that's like curving like that. The arabesques of the figure as in contrast and opposed to like the furniture, the straight lines of, but kind of soft lines of that couch. And so the practice with these, again, is I'm doing it all the time, is to pay attention to what is there in life and do it very, very quickly, so that I'm not reliant on the machine. Like, the photograph is wonderful, and it gives us wonderful things, but it's not reality. And here's another one of those drawings.
But all these, you have the model present that you're drawing
Yes.
from, no photographs.
No photographs. In fact, all of these were done at the Philosophy House. So,
I really enjoyed that experience with you there.
oh, thank you.
You're not there no longer.
Well, we might do it again, I think we both enjoyed it very, very much, but we also had, some other projects too that we wanted to work on. And like I say, I had those paintings that were, kind of, I wanted to get to, that were really complicated. And so, another part of the theme, as you can see, there's maybe a little schizophrenia that's going on, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let me try this. Let me try that. And both of us are sort of like that, where we jump around. So we did that for a little while, and this thing right here, this lay-in that I'm doing, I don't know why it's taken me as long as it did. Usually, that's about as much as I drew there, and I don't know, what was that, like a minute or something? There's a line from the 19th century painter David, who said, if somebody fell out of a window from a 3rd story, you should be able to capture their movement and their drawing, that gesture, before they hit the ground. And and so like, I mean, he's one of the great masters, and I've taken that to heart, and that's really what because the rest is embellishment, like you get the general shape, the composition, what's going on, and then like here it's like a triangle, it's very quick, so.
Well, that's my $64,000 question.
Oh, good.
How did you learn, when you learned, because I've tried drawing human bodies, and there's actually a book Charlie recommended. I probably had about 10 of them to 12 of them done. But to do it from scratch, do you study anatomy? Or it was just practice over time? Or, I mean, getting perspective, knowing that in the arm, and how it blends into the wrists and the fingers, and,
Sure. That's a good question. So your question about anatomy, I think I'll start there. And the short answer is yes. And then there's like a funny little story that goes along with that.
You did have formal training in anatomy, or?
Well, I did not have formal training in anatomy, and I studied it like on my own. I bought a lot of books and a lot of artist like anatomy books, and I would learn something from one book, I'd learn something from another book, and it was important for me to practice, like to understand how the machine is made, how the human being is made. What are the differences like between, male and female and different age groups and different sizes and different proportions? What is a canon of proportions? What makes something beautiful? How can you be like more consistent, like so that it's not an accident that something comes out well? One of my great professors, probably one of the most influential professors that I had regarding like striving for excellence, was a guy named Stephen Issel. And he said many things, but he said you should be able to draw the figure. He was also insistent about drawing from life. This is a really major point. And he said you should be able to draw the figure from any point. You could start with the toe and work itself out, and it'll come out. Or start with the eye, start with the hand, start anywhere. And it wasn't just theory. Like, I had gone to his studio, and that's actually what he did. And it wasn't like he was showing off or it was practice or anything like that. Like, he would have somebody laid out in one of his paintings, on a table, and there was, like somebody performing CPR. And because the person was laid out and he had painted that first, the hands were part of that part. But the rest of the figure that was attached to the hands that were on the chest had not been painted yet. So it was a deliberate thing. And I remember hearing from other professional artists when I was young, well, some days you have good days and some days you have bad days. And Stephen said, no, you don't have good days or bad days. You reach a kind of level because you're so proficient, and that he goes, you're always going to be bad. But really what he said is, you're always going to suck. You're just going to suck at a higher level. And so and basically what I came to understand with that is that you recognize troubles that you have in front of you, whether in front of you at the moment, whether they're anatomy or perspective or any of these things that you mentioned, drawing out of your head or seeing a pose and remembering it and thinking, like you're driving by and thinking, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And there's so many things that I've seen like that. Like last winter, I was driving. I didn't have it as part of this display because I thought there was too much already. But I was driving home, and there was this young girl, probably like 12 or something, bundled up in, it was the winter and it was snowing, and I just happened to see the movement, and I turned around, and she had her tongue out, and she was capturing the snow as it was like falling on her tongue. Now that's just so lovely. But I was driving, but like I remembered it. So I got home and I drew it in, in this little sketch thing that I have here. And it's whatever thing that is holding you back at the moment, you work on it. You know that you're not good at probably like 10 things, but of the one thing that's really tripping you up is like proportion, or its anatomy, or its perspective. And you go, well, okay. So when I first started, and like I was in my teens, and I was, dating that lady who would become my first wife, she had a photographic memory, and it had always been like that. She had a super high IQ. We would take IQ tests, we would do brain puzzles, and she would just decimate me. And like clearly that's a genetic thing. She could record things in her mind, and then like play it back like video. And I would test her on that, and it was, I'm not making it up, it was like superpowers, and she would laugh because when we were in school together, she'd go out and she'd have coffee and she'd be real relaxed about things. She was on the dean's list, and I would be back in our little apartment, and with like 10 anatomy books and sketchbooks everywhere. Like, okay, did I remember it now? How does the arm work? How do those muscles work? Where is the radiobrachialis? And how does the bicep attach? And where is it attaching? And what is that muscle? And how could I see it differently from a different angle? And she would come in and she would literally just take my sketchbook and flip through it, like you're just browsing a book. And she'd say, oh, it's so great. You do all the work and I get better every week. And I loved doing it, right? And it wasn't frustrating to me. It's just that somehow I recognized that it would take me 10 times. I would have to look at the anatomy and say, okay, this brain requires that I draw that muscle part. I have to break it down. I can't memorize the whole thing. To break it down just to between the shoulder and the forearm. And I'm going to have to draw that part 10 times before I could recall it from memory, before I could draw it out of my mind and spin it around. And I have the front, the side, and the back. Got it. Now the forearm. And I would do that 10 times. Now let's put it together. And until I could do it from memory and move it in space any way I wanted it, I did not consider that I had actually learned. And then I would move on to the next, the eye, the skull, and I would buy the skull. And, a different person would be so demoralized by having a partner that was not a little, but vastly more intelligent. It wasn't even remotely close. She was on the dean's list. She could remember like lectures. She could remember, we'd walk into a room, walk through a building. She could remember the whole layout. It was just, that's the way her brain worked. But as a side note, when we got into the real world, because I had to work so hard for the little millimeters that I gained, every day, it was fine for me to, kind of grind and work and scratch to get ahead. And where she was always recognized in a school situation, we all know once you get out into the world, nobody cares, and she did book covers as well in the beginning, and it was really unpleasant for her. It was hard work, and she didn't like the people, and it was much more difficult for her. So I guess the point of my story is, if you want to get better at something, it's a blessing if you have to work for it. You know what you want to work. You know what's giving you trouble. There's not a magic answer. Yes, some people can do it really easily. They really can. I've seen it. When I went into, I got to painting from life, and I showed you some of my life paintings here. When I first went into Steve's class, SteveIssel, he had been teaching with another guy named Max Ginsberg and a third guy named Erwin Greenberg. They had brought students, they had initially been teaching in a high school in New York that was called the High School of Art and Design. I think that's what it was. And, it was my good fortune that when I walked into the class, all of those students that had come from 6th grade with those teachers had come all the way through and come into college. So I walked into a room with probably 40 people that had maybe 7 years worth of painting experience. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I was terrible. I didn't know anything about color. I didn't know anything about composition. I didn't know anything about anything. I could sort of copy a photograph, sort of, kind of, badly, but well enough to make my first illustration happen. But yes.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Our 2 hours is almost up.
Okay, so I'll finish this story and then we'll tie it up. Thank you.
Yep.
A lot of people went into that class and they were demoralized because everybody was so good. I was wild with enthusiasm that everyone was better than me. I was the worst one there. And so that I got to learn, I got to see and be inspired. That's the point of it really is, don't be demoralized by what's holding you back. You know what you need to work on. If you want to improve on it, do it. If there are any other questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, maybe that's
Let's put the lights back on, we can see some of the stuff that we're creating.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much.